Hello again. Now, the African Transformation Movement wants the acting public protector's report on Phala Phala set aside. The party has approached the High Court to review Kollega Gcelega's report. Party President Vuyolwethu Zungula says it believes she failed to keep an open and inquiring mind in conducting her investigation. He's also questioning why the acting public protector chose not to investigate whether President Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa complied with tax and customs exchange regulations. Gcelega's report cleared Ramaphosa of violating the Executive Ethics Code. Vuyolwethu Zungula joins me now to talk about the party's court application. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Zungula. Welcome to today here on ENCA. I understand your application was filed on Monday. Can we just begin with an overall question? Are you taking the entire report on Phala Phala by the Public Protector's Office on review, or there are aspects of it you are unhappy with?
Afternoon, Braden. We are focusing on certain aspects of the report, particularly on the aspects that find that Mr. Ramaphosa has not violated sections of the Constitution. For example, the question of paid work, because we believe that based on the evidence that was before the public protector, the admission of the president himself clearly shows that he was involved in paid work. Paid work, Braden, is a case whereby a person gives his mental capacity, his time and his resources towards a paid or an income-generating entity. We know that Phala Phala, the farm, is an income-generating entity. It is not an NGO. Secondly, we know that it is public knowledge that the president invested his time, invested his mind, invested his resources in terms of taking part in operational decisions, such as determining the price of the animals, determining which animals to be sold, and determining what should happen when those dollars were in the farm. Therefore, it cannot be that now the acting public protector will have a conclusion or a finding that Mr. Ramaphosa has not engaged in paid work, because in the words of the acting public protector, that section in the Constitution is there to actually protect members, is actually there to prohibit members of parliament, or members of cabinet, from being engaged in an income-generating entity that will take out time away from them doing what is required in terms of their public duties. So that is what we are arguing in those papers.
Yeah, Mr. Zungula, paid work, does it not mean that you have to be employed? In the case of Phala Phala, the president owns the business. It's a profit that he gets from it. Paid work is when you render a service, you and I or anybody renders a service, then we get paid for it. But he doesn't do that. It's his own business. He gets income by ways of profit, for example.
Braden, the close cooperation, there's only one member there, which is Mr. Ramaphosa. That is what is there in terms of the public domain. Secondly, Mr. Ramaphosa is actively involved in terms of the operational decision. This is different from a person that is a shareholder in many companies or in a company. That person that is only a shareholder has got no side in terms of the operational decision, does not decide what prices must be charged, who are the customers, what must happen to the product. He's only there at a higher level of even determining who gets to be the CEO of an entity or deciding in terms of the board members. But in the case of Mr. Ramaphosa, he is intricately involved in terms of the day-to-day operations. That is why even when the money was stolen, he was the go-to person. That money that was stolen was not handled by the farm manager using the farm protocols in terms of them reporting to the police station. It went to him because he is operationally involved in the functioning.
So that's one area that you are concerned about. What's your second area of concern?
You cannot have such an important investigation whereby there's also allegations of bribery against Mr. Ramaphosa, because the allegation that was there by Mr. Fraser was that the domestic worker and some of the people that were involved, including the alleged robbers, were bribed. Now, you cannot rely on a written statement for Mr. Ndlovu. because a written statement would mean someone who can write a statement for Ms. Ndlovu, whereas an oral engagement, an oral interview would have allowed the public protector to actually probe and scrutinize if what Ms. Ndlovu stated on his statement actually did happen. The second issue is the issue of the domestic worker. The domestic worker was not at all interviewed. There's no interview of the domestic worker, even a written statement. So in that regard, we believe that the acting public protector actually erred on that one.
Okay.
Then the last issue is
no, fine. The last issue of your concern,
The last issue is the fact that the tax records of both Mr. Ramaphosa and the Tabanyoni Close Corporation were not received by the public protector. In our view, those tax records are central to the investigation because it determines how much, if there's any movement of funds between Mr. Ramaphosa
but what about,
and the
Mr.
farm.
Zungula, but what about the SARS confidentiality requirements?
Look, there is a court judgment that allowed that if there is a matter that is of public interest, I think it is Arena Holdings, that there was a judgment that speaks about such can be disclosed. That is why even SARS, they went to the public to say Mr. Ramaphosa is tax compliant, meaning the issue of confidentiality. SARS understands that when there are matters of public interest, they can disclose the information. Okay. So what we're saying is the ATM, the entire tax records of these two entities, Mr. Ramaphosa and the Close Corporation, should have been at the disposal of the acting public protector so that the acting public protector can satisfy herself that there indeed has not been any violation, and also she can be satisfied that there is no money that is received by Mr. Ramaphosa from the Tabanyoni Close Corporation, because it would have meant that there is indeed paid work and Mr. Ramaphosa is receiving money from the Close Corporation.
So basically, your argument in your application for this legal review is that the public protector made an error of law?
Indeed, error of law when it comes to not interviewing a key witness, error of law in terms of not having information that is critical to the investigation, also an error of law in terms of what she defines as paid work, because she confines paid work as someone that would be physically in the farm. But then a person can be in Cape Town but render services virtually to an entity that is in Limpopo. You do not physically need to be there. In fact, Mr. Ramaphosa was there selling animals. There has been auctions that were there. There is even videos or proof of him physically being on the farm. And it is not a matter of a salary, because a salary is not a determinant if a person is indeed engaged in paid work.
Okay, finally, very briefly, Mr. Zungula, what's next now? You filed your application on Monday. What's next? What are the next steps we should expect from this legal process?
We shall hear from the court as to when are the court dates, and then we're going to update the nation.
Have you asked for the court to deal with this matter urgently?
We've not asked for the court to deal with this matter urgently. We did not believe that it is an urgent matter. The court has always indicated which matters should be dealt with urgently. With this one, we do not believe that it is an urgent matter.
Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. That's the president of the African Transformation Movement, Vuyolwethu Zungula. His party just filing on Monday an application in court for legal review of the public protector's report on the Phala Phala farm saga.